Caesar Bio Reading 6, The Office of Praetor, and a Year of Serious Conspiracy. Purpose of these videos are to give you an idea of what's going on, not to recap the text, but to give you extra idea behind it. So let's start talking about the Praetor. In this reading, we see that Caesar is finally elected suo anno in his own year. The first time he can run for Praetor, he runs. And just like Edile, he ends up as top of the poll, showing his popularity. Well, what's the importance of the Praetor? The importance of the Praetor is it's the chief justice and law interpreter for the year. Now, the law is fixed. The Praetor doesn't create laws, but all laws have an ability to be interpreted. And for the Romans, interpretation could be quite loose. Caesar was the chief urban praetor, meaning he was in command of the city if the consuls would ever leave. And he was highly focused on, of course, politics. Now, your chief justice, meaning you can appoint judges for whatever cases, take whatever cases you choose, and law interpreter. But also important was this was the first of the offices with a military imperium. Imperium is a Roman technical term used to describe one's ability to command an army. So if the consuls were ever called out of the city, the praetor could command an army. And after his term of office, this will be the first province Caesar now goes out to command as a governor. So it gives him a certain amount of clout and also the ability after his term of office to make the money back that he used in bribery. He is the second to the consuls in responsibilities in the Senate. And so therefore it's a good position for Caesar to go for, not only part of the cursus honorum, the course of honors, but also essential. Well, what kind of Rome is Caesar dealing with? He's dealing with a post-Sullan Rome. Remember, Sulla had come through and had actually marched on Rome following the reign of terror committed by Marius, Caesar's uncle, a number of years before. Well, Sulla had since retired, dressed as a woman, followed by flute players and cithara players out of Rome to spend his last few years having laid down his dictatorship, his last few years compiling his memoirs and engaging in all sorts of debauchery. But Rome is still left. Marius is populares, not optimates, but populares. Their party has been weakened, killed directly, proscriptions, but also that the power of the people or the power of those patrician politicians who are courting the masses is much weakened. The tribune position is far weakened than it used to be. Things are in flux, but they will return. Everything that Sulla had done and made his laws to support the optimates or the patricians over the populares or the plebeian-focused politicians, that's going to be undone. And most of it is already undone. So the power of the assemblies are weakened, but now they're going to be getting more strength because people want to have a say in the assemblies. They want the assembly to be able to create laws. So therefore, politicians will bow to the needs of the people. But there is an overwhelming debt throughout this time, not only in the common people, but most importantly in the patrician class, that they have been borrowing money and the economy's not been that good. So there's a lot of conspiracy because Sulla has set a dangerous precedent that if things don't work out, if you're not happy with the way the Senate is ruled, well, you can just raise your own power and start again. So as a result, we see the most important one at this year, the Catilinarian conspiracy, which dealt with Cicero, the great orator, was still a novus homo. None of his ancestors has held high positions. And one of his opponents in the political race to be consul was Catiline, or Catilina, who was nobilis. He was a nobility. And because Catiline had gone into great debt, to be consul, and he lost, there was an issue of debt for him and for many others. So therefore, he starts assembling an army and pulling in other senators who would like to see a violent overthrow of the current affairs of Cicero, the consul, being killed. They didn't like him anyway. And of course, to take care of their debts. Cicero finds this information out, denounces him. The Senate really doesn't believe it because these are their own members here and there and everywhere else who are involved with this. Well, that's the big prosecution that we're going to be seeing in the Senate, in the deliberations, until finally Cicero weighs in and is able to have the conspirators arrested and strangled in prison. This is unusual because patricians, Romans, especially patricians, weren't just killed. They were given the ability to exile. They were ability to leave Rome, and that to kill one's own members of one's own party was seen as utterly unacceptable. But such was the violence that Sulla had left, but also such was the unease and unrest at the time that old traditions sometimes were violated. Now, speaking of violation, we do have to talk about a weirdy, wacky guy, Publius Claudius Clodius. Now, it's Claudius Clodius because he's patrician, the Claudian family, but there is a plebeian connection in the Clodian family. They marry and intermarry. It's a very old and wacky family, but it's on the wrong. Publius Claudius Pulcher, the handsome one, is often on the other side of Cicero. Cicero insinuates that Claudius had committed incest with his sister, and that even also that Claudius' sister, had murdered her own husband. He goes out, leaves town because of the heat, so he ends up going to his brother-in-law Lucullus's army in Syria, and then promptly starts a mutiny against his own brother-in-law because of the popularity of the Roman soldiers he was trying to gain through favors and everything else. On his way back, he is captured by pirates, sort of, very similar to Caesar. And remembering Caesar's earlier stories and the reputation, he says, ransom me for 1,000,000 denarii, even 3 million. And the pirates kind of let him loose with, for a ransom for a penny. They weren't so impressed with him. That, as a result, starts a problem because Claudius is really motivated by envy and jealousy. He was envious against Cicero and jealous against Cicero. He was a mutineer against his brother-in-law because he was jealous of his brother-in-law's command. And now he's envious of all things against Caesar. What had Caesar ever done to him? Well, Caesar had been captured by pirates and was massively ransomed. And Caesar was able to have great exploits. Claudius compares himself to Caesar, feels that he's not up to that, and therefore he's been slighted and it's Caesar's fault. Therefore, of course, he decides to have an affair with Caesar's wife. This is how you showed people in Rome, your political opponents, that you were better than they were. As Caesar had done, he had had affairs with the wives of senators who were opposing him. Claudius would follow in Caesar's footsteps. Hence the Bona Dea scandal, which you'll read about, which is really, it's better than the news today. Now, in his trial, Claudius is defended by Crassus. Remember Crassus, the richest man in Rome? And Crassus then pulls some strings, and Caesar does not testify. Now, Caesar divorces his wife at the time because he refuses to say if she committed adultery, but he said Caesar's wife must be beyond suspicion. However, Claudius now owes Caesar some big favors, which we're going to see acting out pretty soon, where we see Claudius, who hates Cicero, Claudius, who is now connected with Caesar and Crassus,